The views and content expressed on the following program are provided solely for informational and entertainment purposes. They do not constitute legal advice. A podcast is not a substitute for retaining a competent, licensed attorney to advise you on your specific legal situation.
Break the business, place work and work is play. Power into creators, have fun along the way. Break the business, doing what it takes. Celebrate success and learn from the mistakes.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the show. It is time for Break the Business, where we empower indie creators and have some fun along the way. I'm Ryan Kairalla, and it is a pleasure to have you here this week. Boy, are we having some fun along the way. Even as we start this program, I'm already hyped. I'm already excited. I got my ear-to-ear smile on me because as we record this at 9 p.m.-ish Eastern, on June 12th of our year of our Lord 2025, we are currently in the middle of Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Final, and featuring my Florida Panthers, who are playing in their game about 10 minutes from here at the stadium by my house, facing the Edmonton Oilers. And I believe, as we speak, the Panthers are up 3-0 in the first period. It's mind-boggling that the Panthers are just scoring goals faster than I can report them, and I don't get to watch it because I'm talking to you. Not that that's a loss or anything. I'm thrilled to be doing this show with you, but if producer Lauren, if you're listening, if you ever want to interrupt this program with a goal-scoring update, if anything happens in the game, feel free to just cut right into our programming and let me know what happens. Keep us all up to speed because, boy, I'd be so excited to hear the Panthers scoring more goals. It's wild to me. I'm really enjoying it, but at the same time, I also acknowledge, as I did last week when we talked about this, that this isn't even fair. It isn't fair what the Florida Panthers are doing to the Edmonton Oilers right now, because we're South Florida, and while we're very, very happy that the Panthers are doing well, we don't really care about hockey down here. It's a fun diversion for us, but most of us don't even know how the offsides rule works. Contrast that with Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Hockey's all they got, y'all. They love hockey. Like the least enthusiastic hockey fan in Alberta is more enthusiastic than the most enthusiastic hockey fan in South Florida. We don't deserve this as much as Edmonton does, but we're still going to get it the way this is looking. Boy, I'm pretty excited for it. And to top it all off, well, let me tell you the biggest thing that's going on with this game right now. But first, let's bring in our co-host this week, musician, investor, and founder of Gideon King and City Blog. Gideon King is here. Hi, Gideon. We've missed you, man.
Miss you too, man. Howdy. How you been?
Doing very, very well, and particularly happy right now because of all the things that I am excited about with this Panthers game. And all three of the goals that have already happened have made me pretty happy. I think the most exciting development of this Panthers game has been, according to producer Lauren, there is a Taylor Swift sighting at this Panthers game, which means Taylor Swift is just a short drive from my house right now. I can only assume maybe she's going to leave after the end of the second period when this becomes a blowout. Maybe stop in and join us for the last 10 minutes of the show. She's just down the street. Maybe she'll bring Travis too.
If she knew how much you obsessed on her, I think she would beef up her security.
Oh, I mean, I doubt, even despite my furious, crazy obsession with Taylor Swift, I'm not even in the top 50% or top 80% of Taylor Swift fans. Her fan base is particularly rabid, and I'd like to think if she joined us for the last 10 minutes of this show, she would be pretty pleased by the nuanced, fair, and balanced discussion we make about her career. You know, we're not just fanboying around here. We really kind of give things a fair shake. I think she'd respect that about us.
I mean, and also, by the way, while I'm coming at you, I think if you polled most people in the United States and asked them what and who the Florida Panthers are, they would probably think it's like some kind of minor league volleyball team. That's my guess. Don't get me wrong. They've had, good season, 22-11, whatever it was, Stanley Cup final. That's awesome. But I don't think anyone actually knows that this team exists in the United States of America. And that's not to diminish them. That's just to bring some reality to your thinking. That's all, Ryan. That's what
I mean, I'd like to be offended by that, but reality actually seems to bear out what you're and confirming what you're saying. Not only do like people around the country not know who the Florida Panthers are as a hockey team, South Florida doesn't know who the Florida Panthers are. They had a news reporter walking through the streets of downtown Miami, just asking Miamians like basic questions about the hockey team. What's Alexander Barkov's number? How many players are on the ice for a hockey team at a given time? And it was just like blank. I mean, but we're the best hockey team in the world. So what are you gonna do, man? Like that's just the way it is. But bring it back to Taylor Swift. I would say we don't need Taylor Swift to join us this week because I think we have an equally cool pop star joining us. In the second segment, we're going to be joined by our guest this week, a musician, songwriter, producer, radio host, and an entrepreneur. Jasmine Ortiz is going to be joining us. To me, Jasmine kind of represents what we want to encourage here on Break the Business. A really talented artist who's doing some cool creative stuff, but has also seen her potential on the business side and has helped co-found a really cool music metadata tech platform, and woman after my own heart, has her own radio show on iHeartRadio where she interviews folks in the music industry. I actually had the pleasure of being on her program last week and really, really enjoyed it. And naturally, I wanted to invite her onto our program so she could share her insights with this community. It's going to be a blast. I'm excited for this, Gideon. I'm really excited for you to get to meet her. I think y'all have a lot of great stuff to talk about.
She definitely exemplifies, in some ways, the artist economy, which is you got to do a lot of things. You just releasing songs, and even if you get 500,000 streams on Spotify, that's not going to pay for the heating bill. So you really got to branch out, and you got to become a personality in multiple ways. And so that's what's kind of cool about her.
Just you saying that makes me really excited for what we're going to be doing in the second segment. Before we get there, though, there are a couple topics that I really want to chat with you about, Gideon. We haven't had you on in a bit, and I've been sort of holding in my back pocket, my box of like Gideon King stories. Like when Gideon King shows up, we got to talk about these things. We've had a couple really interesting AI stories come flying through lately, including the Copyright Office basically concluding that most ways that AI platforms are using copyrighted works to train their platforms like Suno and ChatGPT isn't fair use. And that was a pretty earth-shaking ruling by the Copyright Office that's shifting a lot of lawsuits. Disney just filed a lawsuit against Midjourney. And, that could really shift the kind of the balance of power between the creative side of AI and the tech side of AI. And while all of this is going on, I know you've written a lot lately, kind of putting your futurist hat on and, making some pretty bold predictions about where AI is going and what it means for the creative community, what it means for just the economy in general. And I was pretty intrigued by what you have to say, and I wanted to kind of start things off by getting some of your insights. Can you clue the listeners in and about what you've sort of been writing about lately in this space?
I mean, basically, even though every other word out of everybody's mouth is AI, I actually don't think the average man, woman, child, person walking down the street appreciates the upheaval, the seismic shift, the gigantic tidal wave that is coming towards us with AI in ways that are scary, frightening, progressive, cool, life-threatening, life-saving. And I got to say that I'm using AI in music now. I went on Grok the other day and I said, do some chord changes in a neo soul style, do some chord changes in an Adele style, do some chord changes in a Steely Dan style, do some chord changes in a Chappell Roan style.
There's our Steely Dan reference.
I did it. I knew you were going to do it. I'm never
probably the earliest that the Steely Dan reference has made it from you.
I am never going to come on the show and not mention the greatest musicians ever to grace pop, rock, and jazz music. So, but getting back to the AI thing, I don't think that a musician in today's world, unless they're really far off to the right or left in classical music, and even then, can go without using AI anymore, even in creating their music. You don't have to have AI write your lyrics for you, but asking AI to take a stab at lyrics on a subject that you're attacking in one of your songs will definitely, if you prompt it right, give you some inspiration and give you some ideas. And so my advice to anyone struggling with, my brother's a real purist jazz musician, and he's a great jazz musician. He's played with everyone in the world. He's phenomenal. And he keeps saying to me, but AI can't do this, but AI can't do that. And the truth is, it can, it will, and it's coming. And to some extent, it's here. And I just think the best defense is a good offense. And you've got to use it if you're a musician. You cannot reject this thing. You've got to use it in everything from chordal structure to lyrics to idea generation. And if you don't, then the speed at which you create will be slower than the speed at which others create. And you will be at a disadvantage. The key, like everything else, is to pick and choose what you get from AI. Let it be vague inspiration, but not direct, overt inspiration, because it's still kind of plasticky in its output and sort of it's sort of like not quite there. And so if you use too much of it, any listener will smell a rat. But the bottom line is, for anybody out there, you got to start. You got to use it. You got to be all over it. You have to embrace it and run with it. Otherwise, you're going to be, you're going to be deeply left behind. Even in the sync world, in the streaming world, writing, producing, structuring, solos, everything. So that's my first comment. My second comment is with respect to the legal side of this thing. I don't even think precedent being set has really broached the essence yet of the huge heist that is AI. For example, Ryan, if you get on Grok or Manus or Claude or whatever today, or ChatGPT, say, write me some lyrics just like Tay-Tay would write, or some chord changes just like Taylor Swift would write, it will give you some lyrics and some chord changes that are similar to what she would write. And then you'll take it and you'll twist it, and it'll sort of become your own, but it'll be a little bit of a heist from Taylor Swift's style. And so I don't know if the legal profession or precedents and courts can ever get to the point where they tackle what, in my view, is the truly substantive heist going on, which is the millions and trillions of tiny thefts, not just the big obvious ones. And we'll see. And I don't know. It's hard for me to get my hands around the legal concepts. If I say write chord changes in a Steely Dan style, it really does do that. And it may even borrow from some Steely Dan songs. And then if I embrace that and put it in my songs, we're just in that thicket of legal implications. So, man, crazy world out there. But if you're an artist, you got to jump in. You got to jump in and use this thing. And you got to embrace it. Best defense. Sorry, no, what is it? Best offense is best defense is a good offense. Yeah. As I said before, for sure. By the way, 2 Steely Dan references. So you know what? Eat your heart out, buddy.
I mean, you make it sound like I don't want the Steely Dan references. When Gideon King comes on the show and you don't give us a Steely Dan reference, like nice. It's like, when your favorite band goes on tour and they don't play your favorite song. Like, we want to hear the hits when Gideon King comes on the show. And like, your chart topper is the Steely Dan reference. Like, we're all waiting for it. Now it's here. But I mean, look, I think when it comes to AI, I think I'm a lot more of an AI optimist than a lot of other folks in the creative community are. And maybe it's just one of those things where I want to be an optimist because it keeps me from being a pessimist. But, I don't think AI is going to replace creatives any more than Microsoft Excel, destroyed the accounting profession, right? We still have accountants, and arguably we probably have more accountants and more demand for accountants now than we did before spreadsheets were a thing, right? The emergence of technology allowed all of those people in that profession to raise their game to a higher level, to be more productive, to be able to do more, which then created more demand in that field. Now, to your point, Gideon, the accountant who sees the emergence of Microsoft Excel and says, oh no, I'm not using that. I'm going to do my spreadsheets by hand the old fashioned way. That person's going to be replaced by the accountant who is willing to use the Microsoft Excel and spreadsheets. And I think it could be the same way for you, right? The musicians who refuse to find ways to use AI to allow the musician to be more creative and to reach higher creative heights could put themselves at a disadvantage relative to the artists who are willing to use technology.
And I disagree with you, and I agree with you, and I slightly disagree, and I slightly agree, because let's take an example. Gideon King and Ryan Kairalla just start a new band, okay, and we release our first single. 95% chance to do our album cover artwork. We are going to Ideogram or one of those programs, and we are creating an album cover with Ideogram. We are not calling the graphic designer. We are not calling the artist. We're going to one of those generative AI programs. So I can tell you from speaking to a lot of music managers, it is super tragic what's happening to graphic designers. Some are migrating over to AI, but you really don't need to. With Ideogram, you can almost handle anything you need. And so you may be right that it will be a tool that is not necessarily a tool of destruction, elimination, and rationalization. But I can tell you, I am seeing it eliminate jobs in the music world. It's very sad. I mean, like, to be honest, in the last 2 or 3 singles that I've released, I'm using generative AI to create my album covers, not graphic designers anymore. And that's like really scary and sad, man.
It is sad, and it is going to eliminate, like any technology, any labor-saving technology is going to eliminate some jobs as we know them, right? Every law firm in America every major law firm in America used to have at least a half dozen legal librarians working full time.
Yeah, man.
And then we got LexisNexis and Westlaw, and those people are no longer in that profession anymore, right? Some jobs get eliminated, but it didn't mean the end of the legal profession as we know it. The legal profession has only grown since those technologies have been created. And so I think, unless I'm missing something, and admittedly, you are far more attuned to this world than I am. I know you're investing in this space. It seems to me that AI is like any other technology. It will eliminate some jobs, and then those people will go to other jobs. They will retrain. They will, or just go into jobs that currently don't exist today, but will exist later as this technology emerges, and other fields will only become super powered by this technology.
I hope so. But I think for the first time in the history of the world, we have a technology that will destroy 10 times more jobs than it creates because of agentics, because of agentic workflows. And agentic workflows, we've essentially created a new species.
So,
now,
but anyway, look, obviously I know what agentic workflows means. So, you and me, we're just talking agentic workflows all the time. And now, but for the viewers and listeners out there, just for their sake, because again, I'm with you. Right. Could you define what an agentic workflow is?
Yes, that's all AI is now. So when we think of agentics, we think of an autonomous agent, meaning like agentic agent. And that autonomous agent reasons, plans, and takes action just like a human being. They're even showing up on Zoom calls where an autonomous agent speaks on the Zoom call. So for those uninitiated who are listening, agentics is what's taking over the AI world. It is autonomous, human-like agents that reason, plan, respond, perform tasks faster than humans, better than humans, and with a broader scope of inputs and a broader scope of unifying data and concepts than ever before. So I just want your viewers, listeners, to look right in the eye of these autonomous agents, and start thinking about how we compete with these autonomous agents and to master them, because if not, we'll be the dogs being walked by them. And we want to be the alpha the alpha species here, the apex predator, and we're very close to agentics and autonomous agents being the apex predator on Earth when it comes to employment and creation and so on. So listen, I don't want to get too apocalyptic here. Okay, listen, I know you rely on me to come on your show and be a curmudgeon. I get that, Steely Dan and curmudgeon. I get it, dude. I know what I am. I know I'm just a pawn in your game, but I'm telling your viewers, spend tonight reading about agentic workflows and agentics, and it will blow your mind.
What you said there in the end about sort of like, we don't want the dog to be walking us.
Yeah.
It reminds me of a tweet that I often like to quote when we bring up this AI discussion, where somebody was lamenting that AI was supposed to do the dishes for me while I could make music, and instead the AI is making music while I do the dishes. And, I think there is some sense of like, the promise of this was that it was supposed to do the stuff that we don't want to do so that we could do more of what we do want to do. And right now, AI seems to be playing a lot in the things that we do like to do.
Yeah, I mean, when kids go to college now and they have to write an essay on anything, AI is writing the essay, and they're just editing it a little bit. That the whole idea of writing an essay, dead, gone, finished.
I mean, it is kind of, I can tell you, and one of the things that I'm seeing in the higher ed space, which is kind of funny, is a lot of my colleagues and I, we're becoming a lot more like Luddites than we used to be. We're getting back to the good old fashioned blue books, like the ones that you had when I was in college, I had when I was in college. Like, we're bringing kids back into the classroom, giving them a pen, making them write that essay by hand in front of us, because we're so afraid of ChatGPT writing stuff for people now.
And it's funny you say that, because in a lot of like social and creative ways, I'm personally spending so much time with AI that sometimes I have to put it all down, and it just like feels good to like make some like rice-a-roni, or like have some like soup, or like make a grilled cheese and do something real. That's something that a human does, and that one of Elon Musk's Optimus robots can't quite do yet, which is make a grilled cheese just the way you like it. And so like I am once a day trying to like ride my motorcycle or make a grilled cheese or do something that like AI can't do better than I can right now. This whole CD I'm writing is all about AI, and I'm trying to write songs that AI cannot write. That's the entire purpose of the CD I'm doing. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about on the show, is my CD.
but nice move, finding a way to promote it while you're on here. That's a professional if I've ever seen one.
Hell yeah.
I mean, I think what a lot of what we're talking about requires, for this all to like create to present a good outcome for creators in the face of all this AI, we need like legislators that are ready to meet the moment. And nothing of what I've seen right now has made me think, oh yeah, Congress is up to the challenge to get a hold of this AI monster and make sure everything's done in a way that helps people. But one thing that I have seen recently, Gideon, that I am hoping can be somewhat reassuring, although the jury's still out on it, is in terms of, are there actually legislators out there that want to help creators? It was recently announced in Billboard and a bunch of other platforms that in the U.S. House of Representatives, Representatives Yvette Clarke and Beth Van Duyne, a Democrat and a Republican, have officially launched the Bipartisan Congressional Creators Caucus. This is the first time that there has been a congressional caucus that was specifically devoted to creator issues and wanting to help people who are part of the creator economy, helping the same independent creators that we're trying to help here on this program. In a statement, Representative Clarke said, quote, "As digital content creators' online presence continues to reach billions globally, Congress must work to ensure resources and protections are in place to support their success in this new era of startups." On the surface, I'm encouraged by that. Like, oh my God, finally, for the first time, we're seeing the legislative branch actually talk about independent creators and to talk about them as a separate branch from the entertainment industry as a whole, right? Normally when Congress talks about the entertainment industry, they don't talk about individual independent creators. They talk about the record labels. They talk about the movie studios and what laws can we pass to help the labels and the studios? What can we do to extend copyright so that these big media companies can continue to consolidate power? And they never talk about what the small-time creators making five figures need. And so it's nice on the surface to see this get announced. What I didn't see from this announcement, and which does give me pause, is any actual policy being discussed? Like, this announcement didn't say anything about, here are the legislative priorities that this Congress is going to emphasize. Here are the things that we know creators need, that we are going to devote our political capital to seeing happen. And in the absence of that, I'm a little concerned that this is just going to be nothing but a big announcement and nothing actually done for creators.
Yeah, so here's what happened. Yvette Clark and Beth Van Dyne, if that's how you pronounce it, has a staff. Their staff walked into him and said, by the way, this creator economy, there's lots of young people who could vote for you. We better say something that helps us get their votes and puts a smile on their face. They'll never do anything. They'll never do anything remotely substantive. It's purely performative nonsense rhetoric. Maybe they'll put a bill together, which they won't even get behind. And then it'll just go away and they'll do nothing. Now, I'm sorry, man. I've been a monster curmudgeon on this show so far. I realize that. I need to say something positive, like, I like your sweater or something. But the bottom line is this will literally go nowhere. They have some staffers. They say, oh, holy moly, we got tons of voters in that, in who are creators in X and Twitter and so on and so forth. Any vote that they have will never do a damn thing for any of the creators.
Yeah, it's funny. I almost think that if this goes nowhere and leads to no positive change, that's not even the worst case scenario. To me, the worst case scenario is that we just continue to see more policy that is destructive towards independent creators. I think it's pretty notable that one of the groups that came out in support of this creators caucus that are like, we love this, we think it's a good idea, is YouTube. To me, a congressional creators caucus that is supported by YouTube and like YouTube is its strongest backer would be like creating a congressional health caucus and the biggest supporter is Frito-Lay.
Yeah.
This is a group that if you're trying to create a caucus that is supposed to fight for creators, YouTube is one of the groups you're fighting against. Presumably, you're going to be creating legislation that is going to weaken YouTube's power to strengthen creators. So if YouTube is saying we support this, that tells me like they're going to create a bunch of pro-YouTube policy and disguise it as pro-creator policy.
If you asked me that question that you asked most of your guests at the show, what advice would you give to an independent artist? Blah, 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 right? I would say, in light of this discussion, read legislation, watch what people do, and do not listen to what they say. You know who figured that out early? Was Bono. Bono, everybody said, what the hell, man? You're a Democrat. Why the hell are you visiting George Bush Jr. in Washington? And he came out with a press release or whatever and said, because he's the only one that's actually done anything to help anybody in Africa. He's actually done things and he really cares. And I remember it. And he said, you've got to read the legislation and look at what people do, not what they say. So again, if we ask that question at the end of the day, what should artists do? Artists should actually read legislation and see what these elected representatives do, not their performative throwaway elliptical utterances that mean nothing and are not operational.
Well, since you brought that up, it does remind me of an article I saw that Taylor Lorenz, who's been on the show before, wrote in Passion Fruit recently about this creators caucus. And she basically kind of echoed the same sentiment you did, which is don't just focus on what they're saying in the press conference. Let's look at what actually their votes have been in terms of supporting creators. And she noted that it's pretty striking that every single member of this caucus voted to ban TikTok, voted to ban the platform that many creators are using to get their content out there and that many creators actually depend on for their well-being and their livelihood. A lot of creators are actually making money on this platform, whether it's indirectly by just driving people to their Spotify or their merch, or they're actually selling stuff on the TikTok shop. And all of these people that said, we're going to support creators and we're going to, do whatever we need to do for them, even if it means, sacrificing other policy goals, they voted, to ban the place where artists are doing stuff. Like you can't, again, what are they doing versus what are they saying?
Absolutely. It's just I consider there were 3 or 4 events in my life where I felt like I grew up a little. And one of the first events was when I was told something by a politician and something I was doing, a deal I was doing. And I believed it all. I bought it hook, line, and sinker. And in the end, I ended up losing a lot of friends and investors and a lot of money because I believe this politician, and he didn't do anything that he said he was going to do. So shame on me, of course. But for your listeners, man, read their legislation. Don't listen to a damn thing they say.
Love it. All right. I'm with you on that, man. I've seen way too many when it comes to arts, entertainment related legislation. All the stuff that gets passed is usually just like major copyright legislation that mainly just helps big media companies. And I know people say like, "Oh, but don't copyright laws help independent creators too?" Yeah, on the margins, except if you're a young independent creator, you're not making as much money off of your copyrights. You're making money playing gigs and stuff. The earlier you are in your career, the less money you're making in your career, the less money that you're making off of your own IP and exploiting your own IP. You're making money by gigging. You're making money often by covering other artists' work. And so expanding copyright law doesn't help you directly. But whenever we see legislation that gets proposed that actually would directly benefit independent creators, like the Protect Working Musicians Act, it goes absolutely nowhere in Congress.
Of course. All they want to do is placate the artists. And you know what? Let's also hold the artists, and of which I'm one, to task. Like, go deeper. An Instagram post about a cause is not enough. Read about the underlying cause. Get the facts. Anyway, whatever. You know, at least your team's winning. Florida Panthers.
Are they still winning?
I don't know. Is that a volleyball team or is it hockey? I can't remember.
I think lacrosse or something, whatever it is. According to producer Lauren, if I can read the numbers that she's holding up in the virtual green room, I believe the Panthers have 3 and the Oilers have 1, which, you know, I know lawyers are bad at math, but I think that still means we're doing all right. Let's take a quick break. We're going to be joined by our guest, Jasmine Ortiz, in the next segment. I'm pretty excited for that. She's so cool. Don't go anywhere. Keep checking out Break the Business. Break the Business is presented in cooperation with Ryan A. Kairalla, PA. Ryan A. Kairalla, PA is a law firm providing transactional entertainment legal services, including contracts, business formation, commercial law, copyright, trademark, and more. Ryan A. Kairalla, PA, Miami, Florida. rkpalaw.com.
Streaming services for Break the Business provided by LEK Entertainment. LEK Entertainment is a full-service entertainment company offering everything from consultations to full-scale events and productions, including audio and video productions, voiceovers, staged theatrical productions, script and music development, and streaming services. For more information, visit lekentertainment.com. LEK Entertainment wants to help you bring your story to life.
Thanks for supporting Break the Business. If you have a question or topic that you want us to discuss, email us at breakthebusiness@gmail.com. You can follow the host, that's me, on Twitter at Ryan Kair, and you can follow the show at the BTB Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, and on all major podcast platforms. And now, let's get back to the show. I'm going to come right out and say it. I'm very worried about Taylor Swift right now. All right, I see the pictures of her and Travis Kelce and they're at the Panthers game and they're having a good time. And I know I'm going to sound like, you know, her mother when I say this, but she should not be wearing shorts into a hockey arena. Okay, hockey arenas are like 52 degrees. She's going to be cold. Like Travis has that big bushy red sweater on. Like, you got to do the dude move here, Travis.
Ryan.
Put that sweater on her legs. She's going to freeze to death. All right. And, you know, she is a really important economy. She literally employs thousands of people on this tour. We can't have her dying of pneumonia. And so, like, I'm worried. And it's affecting my ability to podcast effectively because I don't want anything to happen to my girl, Taylor Gideon.
I just think that, I think that you need to stay out of Taylor Swift's business. And I think that, like, at some point a restraining order is going to come. And as a lawyer who's probably a member of the bar in Florida and some other places, I just think you need to, like, start really thinking about this obsession and maybe see a psychiatrist about this. That's what I'm thinking. That's my advice.
And the wild thing is that the stadium where she's at right now is close enough to my house that if she did get a restraining order, I might actually have to, like, leave my house. Just showing some concern to somebody who I think is the ultimate Panthers fan. I mean, she's got like the red lipstick and everything. Travis is wearing the red sweater. I think they love themselves some Florida Panthers. And frankly, I couldn't be happy. Like, it seems like we like all the same things, right? Taylor, I went to NYU. Taylor got an honorary degree from there. We've both worn the NYU doctoral gown. I thought that was pretty cool. And now she's rooting for my hockey team. I love that. Before we get into our guests, just want to thank everybody for checking out Break the Business. You can check us out on all major podcast platforms on SiriusXM 145 and our live streaming partner, volume.com, wherever you're checking us out. Man, we're just so glad that you are, and we're having a great time here. Let's go ahead and bring out our guest this week.
She's a voice that shines so bright, breaking waves with all her might. A melody that lights the air. Jasmine Ortiz, beyond compare. Jasmine's here, let's raise the sound. The queen of rhythm all around. From the mic to every beat, she's the energy we need.
Our guest this week is a recording artist, songwriter, entrepreneur, and the host of the Jasmine Ortiz Show on iHeartRadio. You can follow her on Instagram and YouTube at I Am Jasmine Ortiz. We are happy to welcome Jasmine Ortiz on to Break the Business. Hi, Jasmine.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me on the show, Ryan.
So excited to have you. It's the very least we could do. I had the pleasure of coming on your show, and you treated me so dang well that naturally we had to bring you on here too. You're a Miami girl, Jasmine. Are you following it anyway? What's going on with the Florida Panthers right now and the ass kicking we're currently delivering to Edmonton?
Absolutely. I've been rooting for the Panthers since our Stanley Cup win last year. I went to a Panthers game during the main season this year. Fantastic. Yeah, super excited, hoping that we take it all this game.
That's what I'm talking about. Yes,
That's
indeed.
what I'm talking about. Let's go. And I was hearing the conversation about Taylor and her shorts, and I just have to say something. As a fellow Pennsylvania girl, she is not cold.
Really?
Yeah, Taylor and I both hail from Pennsylvania originally, so I can tell you people were wearing shorts in, 45-degree weather there.
So you're saying like these Northeastern people, they're built different.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I've lost my winter, protection since I've been living here 7 years, but I once had it as well.
What Jasmine is trying to tell you in a very clever way is you need to stop obsessing on Taylor Swift shorts. Forget Taylor Swift shorts and get on with the show.
Don't make this weird, Gideon. All right, don't make me the weird guy. Like this is purely a climate thing. All right, this is me knowing how cold hockey arenas can get, and like y'all need to not make me that guy because you're making me that guy right now. Jasmine, one of the reasons why I am excited to have you on this program is I feel like we can take this conversation in about 1,000 different directions and you'll have something to say on it because you wear so dang many hats, right? You got the Jasmine Ortiz Show on iHeartRadio where you interview some pretty impressive names in the music industry. You're also a terrific recording artist, songwriter, producer. You got great music out right now, and I encourage people to check it out. You're also an entrepreneur. You're a co-founder of the metadata platform Audio Atlas, and you just got recognized by Miami Music Tech, and so you got a bunch of cool things going on. I know you're also very passionate about health and wellness for artists. You've talked to some guests on the Jasmine Ortiz Show where you've gotten into that topic. And it's a pretty opportune time to go over that subject with you because it's been that particular topic has come up a lot in Billboard magazine recently about, what I've been calling the therapy gap for a lot of artists when it comes to healthcare. Turns out that therapy, mental health services is actually the largest cost for healthcare for recording artists or just entertainers in general, right? Folks in your industry tend to be more prone to mental health issues and tend to need a lot of these services and are often having trouble getting them. They tend to be a lot more expensive than other kinds of healthcare for artists. And, a lot of artists are having trouble finding ways to make those numbers work. What's kind of your perspective on this? And do you think that there are any things that could be done to try to make this very important resource available to creative professionals?
I absolutely agree. There's a huge just healthcare gap in the music industry. I mean, that's why the Recording Academy offers some levels of insurance. I've personally never fully checked it out, but I know that there is some sort of offering, supposedly. But I know that it is a huge issue. What I've been discussing with guests regarding health and wellness is finding a better work life balance. A lot of artists work retail or hospitality jobs to support their passion, or if they're successful at songwriting or podcasting or other forms of revenue, they're able to do that. However, there's no differentiation between your personal life and your work life. And I think being able to find that line in the sand and draw it and have hard limits for yourself is a great step in the right direction to establishing better mental health practices. I think grounding yourself, this is going to sound, new age, but journaling, just being really centered with literally going outside. I mean, we are inside way too much, staring at screens constantly as a byproduct of what we do. So I think just connecting with nature is the most underrated form of mental health care. Back to therapy, I do believe there's a lot of great resources out now. Grow Therapy, for example, is actually the site that I use. And I have a great provider that I've been with for almost 2 years. So I think it can be a good avenue for talk therapy. However, psychiatry has a lot of elements of financial barrier and hospital system barrier. Sometimes you need a reference from a PCP. So there's a lot of levels to it, but I don't think that people are completely in the dark.
Certainly not. And I do think there are some tech platforms that have emerged that have kind of helped, narrow that gap for a lot of creative professionals. And while I do think that a lot of what you brought up there is very valuable advice for artists that they can start doing now internally to improve that situation, I think there's a lot more the industry needs to do externally. I was encouraged recently by an op-ed that I saw on Billboard by Ricky Reed, the Grammy Award winner, helped manage Lizzo. He's been on our program before, really cool dude, who wrote, he talks about with his label, Nice Life, how they have, for all the artists they sign, a $5,000 fund that they extend to each of their signed artists that is non-recoupable, by the way, which means you don't have to pay it back with your royalties. You just get it. And then the artist can use that fund for anything they want regarding mental health and wellness. And it's very broad. It's very expansive, right? They can certainly use it for traditional therapy, but if they want to, use a gym membership to exercise, or they want to go on a nature trip, or anything that they could conceivably want to do to better their mental health, this fund will pay for, non-recoupable. And one of the things that he closed this article with is, if my tiny ass label can do this, why can't every label do it? And I love that perspective.
Yeah, I think that's super powerful that he's already trying to break the mold in that space. I know the major labels have been struggling with the rise of independent artists, entrepreneurship in the art space, social media becoming such a vessel for virality, for exposure. But I think a way that they'd be able to re-entice artists that are trying to stay away from the label system would be to provide benefits similar to any other normal job would provide real benefits. Unfortunately, record labels don't see their artists as employees. They see them as the product. And because they are a product, they're exploitable and they need to be recouped. Their advance needs to be recouped based on the sales of their music. So in that case, artists are kind of left hanging, even if they are signed to a major label, to pay everything out of pocket. I think that's a really great step in the right direction. While a stipend might not be the final answer, I genuinely think that artists should be offered paid benefits like an employee of the record label would receive.
Well, earlier you talked about work-life balance and how important that is for creators achieving mental health. But when I look at you, Jasmine Ortiz, I don't see somebody who could possibly have work-life balance. Your LinkedIn page alone, like, you have to scroll like 3 times with the mouse to get everything, because you wear so many hats: recording artist, entrepreneur, radio host, songwriter, producer. How do you balance all of it? Like, how are you like finding time in the day to do all of these different things?
Honestly, it's a struggle a lot of the time. I'm gonna be so transparent, but I think a huge part of it for me is discipline in categorizing the most pertinent thing I have to get done in each given day, each given week, really prioritizing different tasks at different levels. I think that's the main key for me because I do wear many hats. I mean, on the side, I also teach music lessons. I also do solar sales development. So I have a lot of different avenues that I enjoy pursuing. However, I will say that it can feel overwhelming. But what grounds me the most is recognizing why I do all these different things, the fact that I'm utilizing skills that I have in all these different areas from business to finance to music to entrepreneurship. And then rehoning into my center mission and realizing, okay, this is a means to an end. I won't always have to probably do 10 different things at once.
The thing that's really interesting, like I'm in my studio today and I had 7 people here, and they're all some of my best friends. They've been in my band for a while. I'm not sure I ran a hedge fund for a long time, did all this private equity. I've been a musician, done a lot of weird, disparate things. And I'm not sure that artists know how different they are. I'm not sure they realize that their personal life bleeds into their professional life ineluctably. You finish a gig in New York City at the Wayland Inn at 12:15. You have a few drinks, you sleep later, while most people with 9 to 5s or working as marketing or whatever are having their workout at 5:30 a.m. They're sort of like recovering from from the night before. So like the whole psychic rhythm of being an artist. I mean, there's even like studies about circadian rhythms and sleep and all that, but like the whole psychic rhythm of an artist is intrinsically disturbed by the very nature of what they do. And I actually said to my bass player today, who's one of my favorite people on earth, I said, like, do you ever exercise? And he was like, no. He's like, because I stay up so late, then I got to get a little piano done because he loves piano too, from 8 to 10, and then I'm doing some sync licensing stuff, and then I have a wedding gig, and then this is a guy who's played with Sting as well, so he's like doing wedding gigs, and then he's playing with some of the most famous musicians in the world, and like I look at these lives and I see that they are so unstructured and so complex, and that normalcy as 9 to 5ers see it is nowhere to be found in their life. So like I've gotten a few of them to convince, I've convinced a few of them to work out with me or go to the gym. But I just wonder how much of this mental health thing is also just awareness that it's like you live such a different life that you have to like superimpose exercise on this completely bizarre, totally disparate, completely unstructured life, opening lanes of total lack of discipline. It's kind of madness, actually.
Absolutely. I think it can be a recipe for disaster or it can be a recipe for success. I personally have felt both sides of the coin. I think I've had moments where I felt super burnt out just from the mental load of managing all these different avenues that I'm pursuing, of having to structure my own schedule, working for myself, working from home, having to be a managerial position, entrepreneurial as well, reaching out to investors for my startup, reaching out to collaborators to songwrite and produce with. So I think there's this level of determination and perseverance that you must have to succeed in this industry as an artist. And like you said, every single day I could have a different schedule. When I'm not actively performing consistently, I will say I do try to maintain a normal 9 to 5 schedule as much as is possible. But, part of a life in this industry is going to shows, networking events that are after hours, even performances, showcases. I mean, you could be in the studio till 4 a.m. So some of these things are inevitable. And I think it's about finding a balance outside of those moments where even if your schedule is flipped upside down, you still prioritize the things that matter the most to you.
And you said one other thing. You kind of said, I think you said, people are in front of their screens, and it's like
Yep.
it's like almost as like a corollary to that comment. It's healthy to leave your apartment. Like it's
Yeah.
healthy to actually leave your home and like walk, not just because it's like
Touch
healthy,
grass, as we call it.
not just because it's healthy.
All the
for
Gen
your-
Zers are saying that now.
And I've noticed that like a lot of artists they almost like they fester in their homes, and they're kind of like there's an excuse for all that festering because they might be writing music and doing stuff, but it's like it's not normal to like still be in your sweatpants at like 2:15, even if you have written like a couple like lyrics and gotten half a song done or whatever. So like I think what you said is true. It's like discipline. And if only someone could communicate to these folks, like imposing this discipline and leaving your home is like seriously healthy. And maybe it is the mental health, the $5,000 or whatever it was that you alluded to before with the record label, that gives some of these folks insights. But man, I've seen it. It is really incredible out there with artists, and even some of the most famous artists. I mean, some hugely famous singers just don't leave their home.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you that leaving your home is healthy. Getting dressed in the morning is healthy. I will say I feel, at least who I am as a person, I feel 10 times more productive and accomplished in myself for the day if I get up, even if I get up a little bit later, okay, that I'm disappointed in myself, but then I get up, I get dressed, I leave the house, I go to a cafe or a library or whatnot just to get work done on my computer. And then in the afternoon, when it's still sunny out, when I've gotten some hours of work done in the morning, I can come back to my home studio and record and feel a little bit more refreshed.
Jasmine, one of the things that you must be doing when you go to this cafe or go to the library, wherever you're making amazing work happen, is this pretty cool startup that you have put together. To me, I think this is like one of the most untapped areas for creative professionals that I want to see more creative professionals get into, which is co-founding startups, particularly startups in the industry that they know best. And sounds like something you're doing with Audio Atlas, which has already been recognized by Music Tech. I would love for you to tell us some cool stuff about what this platform does, knowing full well that you got Gideon King right over there. He's an investor. And, let's see if we can make some magic happen in that regard.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ryan. So Audio Atlas was born out of a need that my co-founder Sean Bolger and I identified when I was working at a small record label, and I was tasked with categorizing and cataloging every single work in their catalog. So with over 250 individual entries between compositions and sound recordings, I had to identify the ISRCs, ISWCs, UPCs, every acronym you can imagine in the book. I had to find it, identify it, correct it, and input it directly into Salesforce. So the only issue with this is that there was no streamlined functionality of how to find this data. The label copy would be one on Microsoft Word, one on Google Docs, one on an Excel sheet. Everything was in different places, in different pieces. There was even an issue internationally where people from the London office didn't communicate with people in the Miami office. So I had to go back and forth with artists' management teams, whom they might not have been working with anymore. It was a 4 or 5 month long ordeal. So throughout this whole process, Sean and I developed a way to kind of cross-check our work and found that this needs to be automated. You guys were talking a lot about AI before. This is actually using an API to scrape data from Spotify and the MLC to get both the publishing data and the sound recording data. The importance of this, especially for independent artists, small record labels, small publishers, is that they don't have to hire someone full-time for $70,000 a year to look up this data and painstakingly comb through it and put it into a database piece by piece. What we do is we automate the initial phase of the process, then any additional entries can also be automated either once they're distributed or via a form to upload directly to our platform. So this can be as hands-on or hands-off as the client wants us to be with it. What we basically do is find the holes in your catalog and identify the needle in the haystack. Instead of having to make guesswork of every single song that you've ever written, who are your collaborators, what are the percentages, was the IPI number missing, and then you don't have an ISWC assigned by ASCAP or BMI. All of these things are issues that we can identify once the initial automation has already happened. So in our first phase, we're looking to work B2B directly with small businesses, labels, publishers. Then in our second phase, we want to move direct to consumer and work with independent artists like myself.
mean, God, talk about filling a need, because I mean, what you're talking about isn't even just an issue that is native simply to recordings themselves in the music industry, right? We have a data crisis in music, whether it's trying to find all the data on a recording or trying to find who all the songwriters are on a recording so that we can get them all paid. You know, people are shocked when they find out that there is like no centralized database anywhere
I
where you can
know.
just look up a song and know who wrote it, who owns what piece of it, who gets paid what. Like, that doesn't exist. I mean, it exists, like, people have tried, right? There are some platforms that have attempted this, but there is no prevailing platform. Like, the MLC is trying to do some stuff with this, and Harry Fox is, but there's no central place. And it sounds like Audio Atlas is at least trying to solve this problem with respect to the individual recordings, which to me creates so much value, because yeah, if you work in that line of work where you have to find all the information for a song, you are checking a bunch of different places. You are talking to managers that are not managing that artist anymore, songwriters that might be dead. And it can be just an endlessly
True.
frustrating experience. I'm excited to see where this is going to go, and I'm thrilled with the recognition that you're already getting for this platform.
Thank you so much.
Super relevant, Jasmine, because it's relevant to the work I'm doing. I was mentioning before agentics, AI agentics with Ryan, and like that's what these autonomous agents do. They go to different silos in businesses and unify the data, and that's what you are. Is you're a data unifier. And you're doing it with APIs, and that's what these autonomous agents do. They try to create APIs with different application layers and all that stuff. So yeah, it's this unification of data thing is like a whole next gen thing in the world. It's a pretty topical deal you're working on there.
Thank you. I really found the need, especially with sync licensing and publishing deals. I was working at a small publishing company as well, and I had to create a Schedule A for a large acquisition that they were proposing. And again, I was dealing with analog label copy, Word doc label copy, and then, of course, publicly accessible data. So I really had to work backwards and make sure that I wasn't making any human errors as well, because the difference of one number can mean tens of thousands of dollars down the drain. So additionally, someone else that I know who works at a small label was telling me her struggle with artists during Latin Grammy submission season. She was having so much trouble trying to prove these artists credits for the songs she was submitting that she was almost running out of time to the deadline. This is exactly the type of problem that we aim to fix, either internally if our system is being white labeled to another business, or if we're overseeing the data collection ourselves. I think it's a need that is really not being tapped into enough, especially accessibly like this in a subscription-based platform.
To me, Gideon, what Jasmine is talking about here is the reason why we need more artists co-founding entertainment tech companies, because it solves the product market fit issue, right? Sometimes big tech will come in and think that they have a solution for the entertainment industry. Like, oh, look at this thing that we invented. It's beautiful. It's sleek. It's fun. And then it gets into artists' hands, and artists say, what are we supposed to do with this? This is stupid. We're never going to use it, right? This is why we need artists as co-founders, because you actually identified a problem that you found out about by virtue of working at a record label and having to experience these problems firsthand, and you're working with other folks to help create a solution for that problem. This is what I want to see. This is why artists should be doing this kind of stuff and getting more seats at the table.
I will say, yes, in theory, and yes, it's inspirational, but you better prepare for the holy hell of what it is to start a business. Raising money, disappointment, not getting the revenues on the day you think you're going to get them. And like the level.
By the way, those all sound like problems that artists already deal with in their original line of work.
It's true. But when you do a startup, bringing it from theory to practice is one of the most brutally difficult processes. I've done it. I've done it 500 billion times, and it's one of the most brutal processes. So you have to be insanely organized, and you actually just have to be almost psychopathically persistent. Literally, you almost have to be like borderline psychopath to get it done, because it's that hard. And so before an artist says, I want to do a startup, it's like, prepare for holy hell. Literally prepare for it. You'll love it. and it could be cool and you might make a lot of money, but literally prepare for holy hell. Like literally.
I think anything entrepreneurial is the same mindset. Of course, a startup is different because you ideally want it to scale. It's a little bit different than being an independent artist where you want your music to scale, you want your brand to scale, but you're not involving other people, other entities, employees, clients. But from my perspective, what we've really been working on is the platform itself. Everything we've invested has been personal investment, sweat equity. So what we're really looking for is that final investment push to finalize our actual platform and then launch publicly for B2B. So
for your-
Gideon.
I've been
for your listeners, Ryan, you're not getting, if I put money in this company, you're not getting a commission from Jasmine. I'm just letting you anyway, conflict of interest.
You're gonna need a lawyer to structure the deal.
I
That's all
mean,
I'm
he's
saying.
right.
Look, you need to do something to make me happy because producer Lauren tells me that the Oilers just tied the game 3-3, and I've spent the whole show celebrating the Panthers before they won. And now if the Panthers go on to lose this game, I'm gonna look really stupid on this show.
No, you'll look like a diehard fan, which is what matters.
Listeners, it's pretty interesting. It's like where Jasmine is right now is she's like almost in the seed investment world. Like she's not pre-product, but she's sort of developing her product. So it's like she's not pre-seed. She's somewhere between seed and Series A, and it's sort of like you're in this place on the continuum, and you just got to go kick some ass.
Exactly. That's what I'm doing here, Gideon. That's actually how I met Ryan as I was being recognized with my startup at the Miami Music Tech Conference. I met a bunch of people there, and I've been steadily reaching out to contacts, just, trying to get people to hear us out, meeting after meeting, seeing where the right fit might be.
Yeah.
We're all rooting for you pretty hard, Jasmine.
Thank
Not only are you
you.
doing some great things, but you went to a great college, so we're.
It's all about the you.
Absolutely right. You can be. I encourage our viewers and listeners, check out the Jasmine Ortiz Show on iHeartRadio. Jasmine, before we let you go, we got one last question for you. Do you have any last tips for the indie creators out there to help them move their careers forward?
Absolutely. My biggest tip would be identify what your sound is, what your brand is, what your story is. Even before you put anything down on paper or post on social media, if you already have a background in that, okay, that's fine. But make sure that when you launch as an artist, you're moving in a steady direction. It's okay to shift later on, but it's really important to find your niche, especially in the age of social media. Everything is visual. So find a sound that resonates with you, that feels authentic, and match your brand and story to that.
Love it. Our thanks to Jasmine Ortiz. Thanks as always to Gideon King and producer Lauren. And thanks to all of our viewers and listeners for checking out Break the Business. We'll see you next week.